past time.
How expensive do I have to be?
Need I spell it out before you get it, baby?
Show me your soul.
And honey, I'll show you mine. I'll show you mine. Oh, I'm standing right here holding up a sign, shamelessly displaying my state of mind. But you walk right past me, pretending like you don't see what's yours for the taking tonight. Ooh,
Show me your soul.
baby, I'll show you mine.
Show me your soul.
Can't you see it's way past time?
How expensive do I have to be?
You mean I spell it out before you get it, baby?
Show me your soul.
And honey, I'll show you mine.
I didn't know y'all were here. Oh, well, good morning. I did. I'm just playing. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Lauren Michaels Harris, and we are here to do the darn thing today. And as I always tell you guys, I'd never be happy if I weren't here with you, but I would, wouldn't it be great if we were all on the beach in Fiji? Our guest today is in Florida, so he's like, I can take it or leave it. Try coming up here to Chicago for about that long. You'll know what I'm talking about. You guys, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. Today is the 24th day of February, 2021. We are inching our way to the very end of the second month of the year, which means next week, we'll actually be moving into Q2. And I want to remind you to set your intentions. Now, I'm not talking about those things known as New Year's resolutions. Set your intentions. You saw at the top of the hour, there was a commercial for Intention Pen, which is one of my sponsors right now. And I have my own intention pen. I'm trying to get it where you can see the inscription. Can you see it? Through me, not from me. That's mine. That's mine. I had them put that on here. They actually, every component of this pen is a special thing, and it's a special alloy, metal, wood, and all handmade. And then they actually pour your intentions into it like this. Woo, woo, woo. Right, which I believe in. And so I'm professing it. I'm speaking it, if you will, into existence, that I'm going to sign some great contracts with this very pen. So if you are really trying to do something to change your life, to change the world, to change the lives of those within the world, set intentions on a daily basis, okay? Oh, there it is. That's the Bell of Purpose, y'all. There it is. Here for its second year on Bathrobe Moments. And what that bell means is when you hear it ring, it's your opportunity to be a part of something greater than yourself. So that means that our guest has thrown something out there. One of you has put a comment on the screen, or perhaps even myself has said something that is worthy of backing the vehicle up, taking a look at it. It doesn't mean because it's in the middle of the road that it's roadkill. You might want to pick it up and take it home with you. That's what happens when we hear the Bell of Purpose. And it is also time to share the broadcast out. Do that right now. Start your day in the right trajectory. You will be blessed in the manner in which you choose and thinking of the right word. Choose. Well, let's use that one. Choose to bless other people. You know, that's how it comes back, the way you put it out. So, you know, just send it out to one person. You could change the course of their day, their week, their life. Whether you believe that or not, you can do it. Help me welcome to the show, as always, my sidekick. This is my Ed McMahon. This is Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo. And today we are drinking on Buttery Toffee. That's the name of it. Smells like it. Tastes like regular old coffee. But I'm so happy to be here. I'm blessed, highly favored. How about you? Today is kind of a different day today on Bathrobe Moments as far as the type of guest I have here. Now, you know, we have everything from celebrities on here. We had the White House chef a few weeks back and Dr. Tranquility from The View and on and on and on. But then in the very next week, we had three people who had never broken their story. They broke their silence right here on Bathrobe Moments. Now, today isn't either one of those, but it's something similar. My guest today, Dan YABOFSKY, is a writer. He's a sports writer. I was drawn to him on LinkedIn, and I started looking at all the things. I thought, what a great story to bring on. And he admitted to me in the green room just a bit ago that this is the very first time that he's ever been interviewed about himself. And not about some sports figure or sports team or sports happenings. So I'm excited for all of us to get to know this great guy. His name, as I said before, is Dan YABOFSKY, and he's currently a freelance journalist who primarily covers sports and entertainment. Now, some of the sports Dan covers includes MMA, which is mixed martial arts, I believe, boxing, pro wrestling, and baseball. Now, for over 5 years, Dan has interviewed various athletes and figures ranging from what is her name? Rapinoe? Lord help me. Dan, let me just tell you, before we get in there, there's a rule on this show, no words with more than 6 letters. Public school. So anyway, Bret Hart, now that's a wrestler. I know about him. One of Dan's goals is to shed a positive light on women in sports. Oh, hey, especially where several athletes are still fighting for equal time and pay. You can follow Dan at Twitter, and we're going to throw that up on the screen a little bit later, along with his Instagram connector. So without further ado, and you know what we do, put your hands together, put your hearts on the screen, put your heart into it as we welcome, in true Bathrobe Moment fashion, our guest for today, Dan YABOFSKY. Here he comes. Top of the morning to you, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. I didn't wear a hat today. I don't have any weave on. I said, well, I'm just going to match it. We can be like, Miami Vice without hair or whatever. But I'm glad you're here. You're rocking that bald head, my man.
Hey, bald is beautiful. I have my own baldtourage if you're interested in joining.
You do?
Well, it's a funny story. It just happens to be that every time I'm at events, there happens to be a bald person next to me covering the same event. So I decided to form a baldtourage, and hopefully it sticks as time goes on.
Well, as long as there's no hazing ceremony, I'm all for it.
No hazing, just okay. Have to have no hair.
Oh, well, clearly. Do eyebrows count? You got a beard, so
I'll make an exception.
Okay, great. Count me in. Get me into that. I like that. So, Dan, why don't you tell the folks where you're at in the world, and let's get started talking about what you do first. And I love that what you said about women. We're gonna get into that. So go ahead, take the floor if you would.
Well, originally from New York, Long Island, went and moved into the city. And then now, as a result of the virus, and I want to be with family as well, because who knows when you're going to ever see your family again during these times. I decided to move on down to Florida to be with family and continue my path on journalism and sports media in general. But I decided to do some freelance work, as I know that you can have a full-time job, but to fulfill yourself, you need to be happy and produce content that makes you and others happy. So that's why I am fully involved right as of now in the freelance realm of sports media. I
love that. And where'd you go to school for this?
Ithaca College.
New York.
Yes, upstate, okay. Where it's very cold.
Yeah, and they have a big journalism program in that school.
Yes, the Park School of Communications is one of the premier programs in Ithaca and in the world, and their journalism program is highly ranked. I never actually was a journalism major. I was involved in the sports media program, but I invested myself in the classes and the professors that were involved in those majors and programs.
Okay. Now, Dan, I'm thinking now, it's all coming back to me now. Didn't I meet you in that industry mastermind, people in the television and writing? Yeah.
The Mia jobs with Mark Oppenheim. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is that an MEO?
MEO, yes.
Okay, because the other day I thought I was talking to you. about coming on here today, and it was somebody else from there, and they were like, "Is this about the MEO?" And I was like, "Who?"
Yeah, that was me. I thought that you
Oh,
were in the call, and I thought you were
oh, that was
on
you.
a yes, yes.
Okay, see, okay, now, I don't need any help with senior moments. I can do that all by myself. Okay, I got it now. I got it. So let's talk about when you decided to be a writer. Well, first of all, when you were a young kid, did you play sports? Did you love to watch sports? Did you have a bunch of jerseys hanging in your room, collect baseball cards? When did the sports bug bite you?
At a very young age, the sports bug bit me because I was always invested in baseball, especially the New York Mets. My dad and I always went to spring training. We
Oh,
threw around the baseball a little bit, and I was in little league, but not paying much attention to it. I was more of a watcher and an observer than I was really an athlete. But
right.
you try to get what you can, and so what I did was I got invested in the sports, and besides baseball, I got hockey, basketball, football, and then after college, I decided to invest myself in sports media, and especially in the combat sports field because it's a very interesting format, and pro wrestling really got my interest at first. And then as time went on, it was MMA as a result of a women's fight, actually, and then boxing. I figured, let's finish that. Let's go to the Holy Trinity. Let's do the trifecta and see where it lands. And I've been just providing content for those three combat sports and kickboxing as well ever since.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Speaking of women and wrestling, believe it or not, I used to live when I lived in Las Vegas, right? Um, I actually lived two doors down from what was her name? I'm trying to think of her real name, but she was one of the original Glow gorgeous ladies of wrestling. She was the one who was the opera person, had the horns on her head and would come out with the staff. I can't remember. Was her name Doris? I don't remember. But her and her husband lived a couple doors down. And boy, when she opened up that photo album, that's a thing that people, for you newbies, you millennials and stuff, that used to be a booklet with, you could peel the pages back and there were real pictures in there. They were called photo albums. Anyway, you don't even know what a photo album is, do you?
I
You
a
saw it
little
on
bit.
TV? You saw it in a movie?
Yes, yes, and I think it was Debbie Egan. She played Laura Morgan. She was a soap opera star. You're saying more of an opera singer.
No, no, this was a gorgeous lady of wrestling. Remember them when they came out with Glow?
Yes, I'm looking her
Okay.
up. I think it was Debbie Egan, played by Betty Gilpin.
No, this was, what was her name? She was heavy. She was not heavy, but she was thick. Let's put it that way, as we say in the hood. She thick. So yeah, she had all the photos, and because here's how I know she really was telling me the truth, because her son Daniel, I remember him, and he was basically raised in those gyms where they would practice and stuff. And Hulk Hogan was the one who he had tons of pictures. Hulk Hogan took him everywhere, right? And I was like, man, but he didn't remember any of it. He was like 19 at the time when I met them, and yeah. Doris, that was her name, but I think it was Doris. But yeah, she was Glow. She was in Glow, and she told me all the things about how they learned those tricks, and how much of it really was real, as far as, yes, it really hurts when you land after you flip off the top and all that stuff. But it was like choreography, like a Broadway musical. She had video and stuff of them learning the routines, and there was a lot that went into that. And I remember it was the first time I saw those women. I was like, it was way better than the guys to me, way better. So let me ask you something, Dan. When you told your parents that you wanted to be a writer, now, did you know it was sports writing then, or did that kind of develop once you got inside the program at Ithaca?
Well, I was always invested in sports writing and or sports in general, I should say. And writing just came natural to me at a young age. I was always a pretty entertaining writer, as my parents would say,
Okay.
and one that would let my imagination fly. So it wasn't until later, after graduation, really, that I started the journalism career or writing career, and I wanted to always provide content and provide a service that is personable to others. That's what my writing is. It's very personable, and I'm consider myself a schmoozer, someone who loves to talk to people and get an opinion from them, get an opinion from myself. And so it just became natural to me that, oh, I should definitely do this because I love to write and I'm very passionate about sports. It's one of the only things I really talk about to a fault. And so it's definitely something that I have invested myself in through the good and the bad, because it's a tough world in the journalism media world, and sometimes you just have to try to throw enough stuff against the wall in order to get things to work.
Yeah, like spaghetti. You
Exactly.
throw it until it sticks, right? Speaking of, there's one up there. I forgot. I got to get that down. Been up there about a month. I'm looking at it. Not really. I'm kidding, you guys. So, Dan, when you are assigned to go do a story, a sports story, let's say you go to, you say you're in Boston and they send you to Fenway Park. Okay. Do you get to go in as the press? And when you get there, take us through that. Do you get to go like in the locker rooms and interview certain players, the managers? Do you get to sit right down front of you or up in the nosebleed section? How do you navigate inside of the actual event in order to get your story? Or do you just sit there and take notes?
Well, for MMA, if I was to go to an event inside the Barclays Center, which was one of my first ever events I was ever credentialed for, the weeks leading up to the fight, you'd go to, say, the Barclays Center or a certain section of Brooklyn, and you'd get to interview the athletes before the fights, and then there's like a line of interviewers that get a chance to talk to the person specifically, or there's a whole press conference where people can talk all at once. Then there's the weigh-ins, and then the interviews possibly after the weigh-ins, because the fighters are obviously tired following the weigh-ins of cutting weight or gaining weight. And then before the event, you'd have to come several hours ahead of time. You maneuver yourself around the bowels of the Barclays, and you meet other fellow journalists. And then if you are ringside, you get to go down to your seat at ringside and watch the fights and basically take notes, right on social media, take notes of the results. And then if there's opportunities for interviews in between fights, you get to go backstage and watch some of the fights. And at the end of the fights, which could be like 3 hours long, 4 hours long, 5 hours away, you get to do the post-fight press conference where you get to talk to fighters on a dais, and they get to discuss the positives and negatives of their outcomes. What was interesting to me was before COVID hit this year, we were attending multiple events. I was attending multiple events. When you're talking about the Red Sox and being backstage in the stadiums, I was actually covering the XFL, which was a league formed in 2001 by Vince McMahon of WWE.
Yeah, Vince McMahon.
Which is an alternative to the NFL. And so it revived itself last year. And it was actually doing very well. I was covering the New York team in MetLife Stadium, and we were able to go on the field. We were able to go in the backstage area. I was not able to go at the time to the locker room. There were opportunities to, but I stayed were in the media room where I was able to talk to the head coaches or the stars of the game. And there were times where you can attend practices and whatnot prior to the games, and it was an opportunity presented to you based off of the PR people or the league in general. And it was very interesting just for deadline writing, because you could either interview the athletes or you can provide results of the game as it goes on, especially tweeting on social media or creating Facebook posts as well. Okay.
So as a sports writer, now that's your jam, right? Sports writing. You never venture outside of that genre, do you?
I've done entertainment before, whether it's movies and TV, and I'm very passionate about politics, so I'm always interested in venturing out to there. I haven't done any political work, but
no.
I'm passionate, and I've been telling people out and about that I'm a chameleon. I can adapt to any situation.
Okay, awesome. So let me ask you this. in your experiences of interviewing these athletes and whatnot, we'll call them jocks. Did you hang out with the jocks like in high school and college? Were you embraced by them because you were the sports writer guy, or are they pretty much like is that like being a band geek?
Well, I was in the band actually. I was in marching band in high school.
And what did you play?
Drums.
Okay. All right. Okay. The cool instrument, not the tuba. That's
Well,
one. That's the
tuba,
one that everybody's
tuba gets
like,
some loud. Tuba's loud, but
yes,
it's
and heavy
charged.
and heavy.
Yes.
Yes. So were you embraced by, did you hang out with jocks and, get invited to all the best Super Bowl parties and all that kind of stuff? Or again, was it just like is it like your own lane where your own type hang out, other writers and creatives?
Well, at first in high school, I was never really invested in writing to start. I was a writer, but I never really saw myself as a sports journalist at the time. So it was just really just going through high school as one would do, just trying to find who they are. And I had friends who were on the football team. I played golf on the golf team. I knew people from there. But it wasn't like, it was like normal high school is like there are certain cliques and whatnot, but I generally hung out with really everyone at the time. Like I said, I'm a schmoozer. I like to talk to various people, whoever they are, whether they're in sports or not. And it was all very accepting at the time.
Awesome. So here you are today, a freelance writer. Now here we are in COVID, which I'm sure changed things up for you, but now it's better because they're doing things where, only so many people are in there. And my sister-in-law, she was my sister-in-law. She's been my sister-in-law, but she was married to my brother 1,000 years ago. But her current husband is the statistician and the announcer, one of the announcers for the Bulls and the White Sox. So when I go over to their house, he's got like memorabilia in his basement, just everything, just racks and racks, boxes of shoes that Jordan signed and the rings they won, the championship rings. And for the right price, I'll give you this guy's address. Anyone out there listening? I'm just kidding. But he sells that stuff. And I have some posters and stuff that he told me were good investments. And I have it. Now, as a sports writer, do you come across things? Do you get signatures? Do you collect anything because you get up close personal? Is it photos? What is it that you bring from the experience other than the story that you keep as part of your sports writing legacy? Because, you could end up like a sports Howard Cosell or something one day for all we know.
Well, besides being a schmoozer, I am a hoarder. It's a benefit and a fault. My parents are definitely on the edge of me keeping all my stuff, but
is that what they call it, stuff, or is it another S word?
You'd have to ask my parents if you want them to come in.
Get your mom in here. Okay.
So I actually collect my credentials because the credentials
lanyard?
I keep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do that too from events.
Some of them are very important. Some of them may not be as important, but they're still memories that you hold. So you can say, if you hold a random card, oh, I went to this event. This is what happened. I also keep.
Never forget this night. That kind of thing.
Exactly. Like if it was a crazy knockout, or if there was like the XFL credential, like I only had one, and it's something I'll never forget. So it's something I'll always keep.
On memories.
Also make one of your own if you don't actually have a credential. If they just give you a wristband, you just make one of your own. I also have fight cards, stat sheets that.
Hi, honey. Have a good day. Sorry.
No worries. I also have stat sheets from the fight events that people provide for me, just because it's something like, even if I have the credential, it's right there. It's for the taking. I also there's stuff with your name on it on tables. I try to keep that. Sure. If there's anything, no signatures, because just trying to stay professional as best as possible. But there are pictures I might have with someone following a fight if I was there as a fan, because sometimes you don't get accepted into events, and if you happen to meet these people as a fan or just on the street, you decide to take a picture with them and you keep that. Right. I got to meet, when I met Bret Hart, I got to take a picture with him. I got to meet Mick Foley as well, take a picture with him. It's memories like those, like besides credentials, that are going to last you a while, especially these fight cards, you just like want to reflect on them. These sheets just make you say, oh, this is what happened. Oh, I had a great time during this. This is one of the best events I ever went to. These are the people I met. And it's a very fascinating situation. I know there's more. I just recently collected a picture actually from a fight in February that I never went to, but it was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. So I decided to collect memorabilia from that. It was a handcrafted picture of a fight, and I bought that in order to save that for my collection because I knew that would be very valuable. One, to remember for a long time, and two, just to eventually hang up in my workspace when I get a poster room, at least.
Right, because as a creative, you want things around you that feed into the flow of your creativity. So I definitely get that. Before we're going to be going to commercial break here in a couple minutes, but before we do, take us out of this first half of the show, and I want you to tell us how you became an intern with the Mets. I know that's part of your journey. How old were you, and how'd you pull that one off?
Well, it was ending my freshman year at Ithaca, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing, and thought, free summer or whatnot. And we decided we have a close relationship with the Mets due to the fact that I was always a fan and I was invested in the team. So I decided let's apply to that and see where it takes me. And I happened to get the role and work it out from there. And I was able to work during a summer where I was able to watch a rare moment in baseball history of a famous Mets player throwing a no-hitter. It was the first one ever in team history. And it was my first or second week there, and it was a great experience. Got to meet great people, and it sparked more of an interest to work in sports and invest myself in another light, because I was originally working in business in Ithaca, and it drove me towards working in media and the inner workings of a sports field. Okay.
Have you ever been called Scoop?
No, I have not.
You just were. So we'll be back with Scoop YABOFSKY in just a moment here. Thank you for joining us, all of you out there. Thank you for being a part of today and showing your soul to us. And we're going to show you more of ours when we return. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about a couple different things, if we could. Your passion for bringing attention to the fairness of how women in sports are treated, paid, and everything around that. And also, I want to ask you about what's going on in the world today of sports as far as what they're sports, those enhancement drugs. Remember, seemed like there was back a decade or so ago, everybody was getting busted for cheating, and that sort of thing. And I wonder, is that a thing today? And most importantly, I want to know when we return if you have ever experienced blood splatter at one of those MMA fights. Those questions and more. Get yours together. We'll address those as well when we return. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't you dare go away.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Okay, welcome back to the show. My guest today is Dan YABOFSKY, a freelance sports writer, graduate of Ithaca College. And we had just talked about your interning with the Mets, and I wanted to know this women in sports thing, where you say, go into that if you could, about the balance of fairness and or lack thereof with women in sports as far as the treatment and the pay. Why is that such a passion for you?
Well, originally, my interest in combat sports came from a women's fight, actually. And my interest in MMA started with Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm. Ronda Rousey is one of the most influential members of MMA women today.
Yeah, I love her.
Former judo star, and she actually yesterday on the 23rd, today's 24th. The 23rd was the first time in 2013 was the women's main event, I believe, fight. Let's see, in UFC 157 in 2013, first time women main evented a show for a title bout. It was her against Liz Caramuch. And Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm sparked my interest because it was just they looked like two of the top athletes in the world, and Rousey was getting all the endorsement deals. And even before that fight, Rousey interested me. She lost the Holly Holm fight, and I knew she would lose the Holly Holm fight, but it sparked my interest even further in providing content. And the real reason for pay and the structure of combat sports, especially in boxing, I watched a fight not too long ago. It was in 2018. It was in August 2018 inside the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. It was Hannah Rankin versus Alicia Napoleon. Alicia Napoleon is a Long Island fighter, and I interviewed her at a summer camp before fight night, and she told me that her fight, which was a title fight, the only title fight on the card, she was really one of the only people from Long Island that were on the card. It was going to be after the main event where nobody can watch it live, and she told me that it was going to happen, and it did. There were about 1,600 people, I believe, inside Nassau Coliseum. There could be more. I'm just guessing here. And by the end of the night, there were two fights after the main event, and then her fight. There were about maybe 300 or less people at the Nassau Coliseum afterwards, all friends and family, a few people who stayed behind. And while the main event fighters were being interviewed backstage, I stayed to watch the women's fight because I was very interested to see what it was all about, because they should get their fair shot at an opportunity.
So you're saying, Dan, if it's a mixed bill, multiple fights, and the men are first, people start leaving when the men are done? Are there less people watching the women than the men?
No. That happened to be the main event happened to already have ended, and they were after the show. They were after the cameras were rolling. So there are fights in boxing that go on after the main event that not many people stay around for. Some people do. It just happened to be the case that the women were fighting after the show.
Okay.
And so they put on a great performance, one of the best on the entire fight card, actually. And they weren't available for backstage afterwards, but I wrote a story. It was called Alicia Napoleon versus Hannah Rankin, the best fight you never saw. And it's one of my favorite stories I've ever written. And it talks about the fight and what why was it important. And during that event, during that fight, I was writing on social media. I was one of the only media outlets that was writing about it. There were others, but I was utilizing the hashtag of their last names. I was using hashtag boxing. I used the hashtag women in sports. And I gained a following through that because not many people knew what was going on during that fight. So I was scoring the fight as my own, giving my own thoughts and predictions. And at the end of the fight, it was Alicia that won, and it was a great fight. And when I got to speak to Hannah a few times after that fight, I spoke to Alicia, I believe, once after, but Hannah I spoke to a few times, mentioned to her the fight and what I thought about it, and it was just it was a nice moment to just reflect on those certain situations. And it goes into women in sports in general, because in boxing, they don't get paid as much as the men, or they don't get as much time. There's 2-minute rounds of boxing for them compared to 3-minute rounds for men. Now, it could be a medical thing. They're talking about concussions and whatnot, but there's no true conclusive data because they haven't tested much females for that.
So is that kind of like, the 2-minute, 3-minute thing, men versus females? Is that kind of like how they used to have 2 different sit-ups? Remember that? There was a girl sit-up, there's girl push-up, or was it push-up? I think it was push-ups. Girls had, remember, they could put their butt down on, they could, the lower, there's always like, we got to make it easier for you gentle females. And is that kind of what that is? Because they figure they're female, because that's where it all starts. Men here, women there. Chopping off what they are capable of doing. Why wouldn't a woman be able to fight a 3-minute round?
So there is the idea of the science of concussions taking place, because their
skull's not any softer than a man's.
That's what the what other female fighters are saying, and there's also the idea of trying to protect them in a sense. There's rules that are governed for specific reasons. I personally did not make the rules, but there are people that are for.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for clearing that one up. Go ahead.
There are people that are for and are against 2-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds. There's one female fighter, actually, Clarissa Shields. She's one of the top female fighters in America, one of the best female fighters that's not named Amanda Serrano. And Clarissa Shields is a middleweight champion, and she is an Olympic athlete as well, Olympic champion as well. She is starting to create her own path. She's a very colorful figure. She has a gift of gab, as we like to say, and she can back it up in the ring as well. And she wants equal time, equal pay for women. And not many people were promoting her outside of her general field. So what we do when we cover her events, we talk about her joining other combat sports because they do pay more, like an MMA, which she is joining the Professional Fighters League later this year, where she is just showcasing her skills and potentially leading up to a competition where she can win $1 million in a tournament if that was to happen down the line. But right now she's taking matters into her own hands, and she has a fight in her hometown of Flint, Michigan. She's very big on providing content. Yes.
Ooh, I hope she never drank the water.
Well, she actually, her hair, she braids it blue in a sense for the water and for the people of Flint, Michigan.
Good for her.
And so she's fighting on March to defend her middleweight titles, but also to become an undisputed champion in the light middleweight division. She is taking matters into her own hands by joining Fight TV. No other platform would really take her for her fight for some reason. They wouldn't promote as well. Just for it ended up being an all-female event on Fight TV in March, and she's promoting her own events. She has female announcers that are coming out. She's doing her own thing, and I think she's one of the most progressive athletes when it comes to women in sports. I know that there are a lot of promotions, say overseas, that promote women, like Katie Taylor in Matchroom Boxing, but Amanda Serrano and Clarissa Shields, and among other women in the U.S., there are a few of them that don't get recognition. I would definitely say in the U.S. more often than not. but they're looking to make their own path, and that's something I love to shed a light on is women in sports, because they have great fights, they have great performances. You see Naomi Osaka against Serena Williams. It's one of the greatest tennis players of all time against an upcoming tennis player. You have Megan Rapinoe, one of the best soccer players of all time, or football, as they like to say.
Well, we all know about female fights. Come on, y'all. I remember Tanisha Gorman and some other girl in 7th grade. It was okay. It was, let me just tell y'all real quick. It was Tanisha Gorman, a black girl who was beating up everybody, including the boys. I stayed in her good graces, which included bringing her a Snicker bar every Friday. Anyway, and a little skinny white girl one day, and she was like, Tanisha was like, "Well, you done it now, girl. Meet me after school on the football field, wherever." And we all was the first one out there. And that little skinny girl, that little white girl, tore Tanisha up. And I remember there's always something. I grew up in a house full of sisters. And, you know, we hear about 2 girls fighting. We'll drop what we're doing. What? Girl fight? You know, and they all said cat fight, right? So what is it about us, even on Facebook, you see people street fights, they always show girls because it's anything goes from fingernails to hair clips, right? And some of them know how to fight just like a guy, and they usually have brothers and stuff like that. But why is it that a lot of people still today don't feel that it's right or politically correct or comfortable watching 2 women go at it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because we recently had a controversy with Stephen A. Smith, I believe of ESPN, talking about how he's not comfortable watching women in combat sports fight. And it's just fascinating, because sometimes I guess it's just familiarity with men fighting, or it's just the idea of watching.
Well, wouldn't a person like that, I'm sorry to butt in, but wouldn't a person like that, how do you feel about the women who serve our country in the military? They're literally out there fighting for their lives, your lives, my life, and the security of this country. So I don't get it. What do you mean? And women have always stood up and came to the call when we were at war, you know, Rosie the Riveter, to, you know, women will go up there and shoot. Did you never see, do you not know what's that island that Wonder Woman's from? You know what? Yeah, where they don't have any men, right? We're at Paradise Island or whatever it was. But so that is still a thing, huh? Where what is that? What do you think that is as a writer? Because you get up close, you get to know these girls' stories, and then also speak about this. Have you ever asked any of them how they got started? Because I can see. So, Cindy, here are your choices: soccer, ballet, or MMA. Well, I want an MMA, mommy. You know what I'm saying? If I had a little girl, I don't think I would be comfortable, even though here I am, you know, supposedly open-minded, with her choice of going. How early do they start? Do people put little girls inside of that thing to learn at an early age? Or is that something that develops after they've gone through puberty? What's your take on that?
Well, Ronda Rousey started at a young age, just because she was born within it. A lot of people have different factors involved in it. You could just want to. It was probably a father thing, or they could be born with it because they were very invested in it growing up. With women today, a lot of young females today could look at these athletes and say, "I want to do that when I'm older," and people do that. I'm not sure why. I guess in a certain sense, some men or others, maybe women in general, don't want to watch women fighting. Maybe it's because it could be too gruesome. Some people, there was a recent post that a friend shared of mine that a woman was very muscular, and they either accused them of taking steroids or which maybe they have. There was possibly rumors of that, or they were a man, or they looked very manly, or whatnot. It's still, well, society in general, even if it's 2021, society in general, there are certain aspects of it that they have a lot to improve on. But I have noticed a great improvement, especially in combat sports, because last year, the poster I was telling you about, one of the greatest fights of all time, not just in women's combat sports, but in combat sports today, and it was voted the match of the year. Rose Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang, or Zhang Weili. two fighters who put on a show of a lifetime and sacrifice their bodies in order to either get an extra pay or just eyes on the sport. And it was one of the best fights you'll ever see in your life. I highly recommend you look it up if it's available. And some people's passions are different than others. Some people's thoughts and opinions are different than others. It's either you have to try to convince them or they're stuck to their ways. But I have seen some growth in that, and women at a young age can watch that fight and say, "Oh, it's too violent for me," or they could say, "That's very fascinating." Before and after puberty, obviously, and they could say it like 5 years old. They could say it at 8 years old. They could say it whenever they want, and the parents don't have to choose that for them. Sometimes they do, and it's a tough situation. Other times they just support them.
Well, where do you see all this going? Because do you remember? Well, you're probably too young, but I remember back when the WNBA first came out, and I was like, "Ooh!" And we really believed that we would be watching their games on network television every time, just like we do guys in the NBA. The draft picks and all that stuff would be a big deal, and it never really reached that level that we all just assumed, because it was a professional sport just with women, that it wouldn't. I mean, golf, there was no problem with that. Tennis, there's no problem with that. Why do you think it's more acceptable for one sport over another? Especially, and of course, we know we got the combat part in there, the combat piece. But do you think that we will ever, as a people, treat women fairly in wherein it pertains to the support and the pay and everything that comes and goes with, because they get up and they're disciplined athletes. It's very costly. They got to make a lot of sacrifice in order to reach the level of athleticism that it takes to be the top of your game. Do you think that women in combat sports will ever be treated fairly at a minimum? Because equally is almost impossible to fathom. It's just a way it is. It's sad, but nonetheless, a reality. What do you say about that, Dan?
I think it's possible. Boxing, it might take a while in certain areas. Like Clarissa Shields, like I said, is doing something on her own, and it's very commendable. And it's something, it's definitely something that we can all get behind as long as you cover it. If enough people cover women in sports and don't avoid talking about it, then it's definitely possible. I know that some people like to cover certain male fights more than female fights, and I love to cover all aspects of it. It's just all about having momentum, and it's all about having people interested in it. I know there was an all-female women's event or majority females event in January with Clarissa Shields, and there were people there that were interested, but some people don't want to approve it for some reason. Some promotions don't promote women's fights, and MMA, they have an all-female promotion. They have female champions who are dominant stars, like Amanda Nunes, one of my favorite athletes to follow. And I think that there's a time where there will be interest, especially in the American market. Overseas, I definitely see it being a big proponent. But in America, while we are saying in 2021 we should be supporting women in sports and whatnot, saying something is cool, but you have to do it in order to achieve it.
Exactly.
And in America, it's a little tough, especially for women in sports. Boxing, I think it's growing very well, but you just need the proper guidance. MMA, it's there, but you just need a big push, and you can't, I would say, talk people down in a sense. I think even if you don't have a big personality, like if you're not a Conor McGregor in the combat sports world or in the sports world in general, you can be a valuable star. You can be an asset that can be promoted very well, even if you don't have the gift of gab, or if you don't do something to stand out. You just need that proper promotion, and it's there. It just needs, and especially in America, a proper push.
I get it. Thank you for that. So, Dan, what do you personally do within your writing, that voice that every writer has a voice that they write from and speak from? And so how do you slip in under the wire, if you will? Because I'm sure you got to trick people into some of this mindset about, your work to bring the proper attention and mindset to women in combat sports. So how do you go about doing that? If you were writing 2 stories, say from the same night, but one's a women's fight and one's a men's fight, what's the difference between the 2 stories wherein you are able to keep promoting your platform that change needs to come to this issue with women in sports? How do you do that? Is there, you know what I mean? Do you shed more backstory on the women? Do you talk about all the sacrifices and struggles? What is your platform? How do you get there and help us to get there?
Well, I try not to make it too different, especially when covering a fight, like a post-fight or whatnot. Like if there's history on the line, I'll obviously discuss that, because in women in boxing, as an example, there's always history being made, or women in MMA, there's always history being made, or pro wrestling, there's history being made every day. And it's all about how you want to word it. And I don't try to make it to seem like I'm preaching something, but at the same time, I do think that using social media is definitely very helpful, because, these people are on social media and they could follow you, or they can see what other people say about their fight or about themselves. And it's all about timing. And I think that if I happen to be discussing a women's fight and I write a men's fight right after, just discuss how dominant they were in the ring, what were their main results. The top of the story is always key to reel people in regards to, say, someone made history, or if they can gain enough support and whatnot. But definitely social media is key. You can have a different tone for a men's fight and a women's fight on social media, as long as it's about even or whatnot, because you want to spread the point across that they're both even in their field.
They're both deserving.
Tough.
Exactly. Now, do you ever see in the future, down the road, around the corner known as the future, what do you think? I wonder if you've ever been asked this question. This is a good one. Do you ever think we'll see mixed? We say mixed doubles. We see mixed 2-person volleyball, guy and a girl. Do you think we'll ever see mixed fighting?
So that's a very slippery slope, I would say, in some levels. In pro wrestling, they have that all the time. It's like mixed gender matches, but they're taking care of each other. On some levels, they trust one another in the ring, and while it looks brutal, at the same time, they know when to trust each other, and they know what they're doing. And some people aren't a fan of intergender matches, and it's a slippery slope. In MMA and boxing, I can't see that right now, just because it's a slippery slope that one would have to make. I know that there has been recent talks of like a transgender fighter actually that was a man competing in the women's division. But however, there have been discussions of that transgender fighter not being a little like breaking in the sense of the skulls or being involved in that. It's a slippery slope that it's hard to discuss, because you have to try to use the right words, but you also have to try to say it's possible, but it's very tough to navigate, especially for just straight on women versus men fight. In MMA and boxing, it's a very tough slippery slope. It's maybe an exhibition back, if anything.
Yeah, let's change that one, because I can already tell I feel like I need to reach inside there virtually and give you a virtual Heimlich maneuver, because it's like I'm choking on this one. And I get it. Certain things you just want to say, I'll pass on that.
It's possible. It's possible. Just I'm not the true expert to be discussing that. It's always about science, or it's about doctors or whatnot. I would definitely recommend that one more than myself.
What do you guys think? Do you think we'll ever see men and women in combat sports fighting or getting it in between each other? Put it in the comments. Now, you are around all these fights and things like this, and I wonder, do you ever bet on fights? Because you're like, I knew she was going to win, or I knew he was going to lose. Do you ever take those inside hunches and say, you know what, I am so sure about this? Or do you go, hey, so-and-so, here's an inside tip? Are you allowed to do that? And have you ever bet on a fight?
You're not really allowed to do so. I actually write for a publication that it's an online organization legal, of course, that is all
course.
about that's all about fantasy sports. No, it very much is legal.
Fantasy. Oh, you mean like
sports.
fantasy football and all that? Okay, okay.
Yeah, so I utilize MMA and sometimes boxing in that aspect, and utilize stats and statistics. Others can follow my advice; they may not. I listen to my own advice and give my predictions on social media, but you don't really like bet on the athletes because one, it's like you're following these people, and it's a little cruel per se. Now, could people be doing that?
Right.
Yes. Do I?
Right.
You know, I personally wouldn't say I bet like $100 or $1,000 on this person I wanted to win. So.
Because, you know, I want your phone number. I wouldn't mind. Listen, Dan, real quick, we got a couple minutes left. One other question before we wrap up here. Where do you get your stories? Or, you know, I want to do a story. Do you get to choose as a freelancer? Do you get to choose what you're going to write on and then sell the story? Or does someone call you and say, hey, would you get over to the garden tonight and cover the so-and-so? Is it some of both? Or how does that work when you're freelance?
Well, just like when I was working full-time, you just follow social media, and if there's aggregated news pieces that need to be covered, you cover the news pieces. Some are very important. Others, it's just thought in my head, really, like if it's a talking point that people are talking about but not writing about, I use facts and information and all the data that's out there and craft one of myself. There are times if you work for an organization as a freelance that they could provide you information and you craft information based off of that. It differs based on where you are and where you go. Sometimes it's a free world, and other times it's you're given an opportunity to show what you can do.
Okay. Are there awards for sports writers? Like, is there awards you want sitting on, like an Emmy sitting on your mantle one day?
I hope for an Emmy or an ESPY. I've gotten
okay.
I've gotten Writer of the Year for an organization that I've been around for a few months for.
Get yourself an intention pen. Get yourself an intention pen and write it down, and it'll be sitting somewhere in your space before you know it. I'll tell you that much. Dan, people can reach you. Now, this would remind me, the one on the screen at whatever that spells, that's your Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
That's Instagram, okay? And on Twitter, it's at Dan YABOFSKY, MMA, Mixed Martial Arts. Right. Okay, so there they are. I'm going to keep those on rotation as we get out of here. Dan, wow, you shed a lot of light on things that we never really get to know about, talk about, and especially this thing about fairness for women. They deserve every opportunity, just like a man. I am totally, totally with you on that, and I'm sure many of you are as well. If you'd like to continue the conversation, the dialogue with Dan, feel free to reach out on either of these connectors with your questions, comments, or just to keep an eye on how he's progressing towards that Emmy/ESPY, because I think you're going to have both, right? So I want to thank you for bringing some sunshine from beautiful Florida, the Sunshine State, into my world and our world. I will see you all tomorrow, where my guest will be Jordan Gilman of Digital Dope. He's the guy who does all of my graphics, all of my memes, has worked with my brand for 5 years since day one, and he's finally agreed to come in and share some of his secrets on how to take your message, your business, your brand to the next level through a digital door. So one last thank you so much, and thank you for entrusting the first time we get to know the man behind the story, the man behind the whistle, Dan YABOFSKY. Anytime you want to come back and share your progression down this road or anything great, you just reach out and we'll get you back, Dan, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you guys get out there and do what we do. Every situation and every person that you encounter within your journey each day is there for a reason. It's purposeful. All you need to do is remember to attempt to leave each person in each situation just a tad bit better than the way you found it. Get out into the world today, won't you please, and become the blessing you'd like to see in the world. Be the gift that you would love to receive from the world. I'm Lauren Michaels Harris. I'll see you tomorrow morning for our next installment of Bathrobe Moments. Be blessed and be the blessing. Bye, Dan. Thanks again. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Show me your soul.
Baby, I'll show you mine.
Show me your soul.
Honey, it's way past time. smile.